Hi everyone, this is Helena Hart, and I'm so excited to be talking with Valerie Greene again today. This is such an important topic. We've been getting so many requests for a video on how to reignite the passion and make a man fall in love all over again. We keep getting questions in the comment sections of some of our other videos on how to apply some of the concepts that we talk about in so many of our videos and programs into long-term relationships and how things change when you go from single and dating into a committed relationship. And Valerie's the perfect person to talk about this. She's an amazing love and relationship coach who helps women and couples reignite and maintain lasting love and deepen the intimacy in their connections with the man. So welcome, Valerie. Thank you so much for being here again today.
Hi, Helena. I always love our interviews. This is such a great topic.
Yes, I've been really excited for this one, and we're just going to kind of list these ones out for you guys today. If you have more requests for a video on any one of these 5 secrets, let us know. We would love to go more in depth and talk about some of these really important topics, you know, the ones that are most meaningful and important to you guys, and let us know what would be the most helpful. That's how we get our ideas for videos, is from you guys. So we're really excited. Make sure to stay till the end of this video, because the 5th secret is really one of the most important things, and it's often misunderstood or just missed altogether by both men and women, we've found. So make sure to stick around to get that one. It's really important. So Valerie, let's jump in. What is that first secret to reignite the passion in a relationship?
Yeah, so the first secret, and you might have heard this from other coaches, is to create a shared vision and shared values. Except I think this is a secret because most couples don't really do this. They kind of settle for, you know, busy lives and creating families and creating a house and creating the lifestyle that they want. And that's great, except people do change. And John Gottman, who's one of the most prolific couples researchers out there, I'll be sharing a bunch of his secrets because he's studied couples over, gosh, I think it's like 40 years now, and followed thousands of couples. And he can predict in the beginning of their relationship, I think with like 93% accuracy, who's going to stay together and who's going to break up. And he found that I think the majority of people, he said, break up because they say they don't have a shared vision for the future. Because what happens is that when you get married, you're all excited and you're going to create family together, you're going to create this lifestyle together, and then you do, but then you don't create another vision. And what I suggest that couples do, this is the perfect time of year, you know, of course this video is going to be up there forever, but it's almost New Year's at this time of this recording. And of course you could do this anytime, but it's a great time every New Year to sit down with your partner and be like, okay, what do we want our new year to look like? What do we want the next 10 years to look like? What do we want the next 20 years to look like? And, you know, not just to include the superficial things like, you know, the lifestyle you want or the vacations you want, although those are really great, but how do you want your relationship to look and feel? How do you want to resolve conflict together? How do you want to make decisions together? You know, how do you want to feel on a daily basis? How much time do you want to take off from your busy lives and connect together? I think those are all really important things to ask. And then also, I talk about creating shared values. And what values are is what makes life meaningful to you. So values can be things like love and intimacy and connection, or family. They can be things like adventure and travel and contribution. And I think that it's really important to choose shared values that you really want to live together, because then you'll know, like, it's not just that you're committed to each other, you're committed to upholding these shared values. Like the ones that I have with my partner are, you know, unconditional love and making decisions that are in the highest good, not just for us, but for all, and service and contribution, but also play and fun and adventure. And, you know, on a daily basis, we're trying to uphold those. And every year at New Year's, we do come together and we do say, all right, what do we want our next year to look like? And what do we want our next year to feel like? And the great thing is that it's a fun, creative process, and people are doing that around New Year's anyway. So it's a nice excuse. But it's also a nice excuse when your relationship doesn't feel connected, or you could do it every anniversary if you're married, or, you know, you could do it every Valentine's Day. Like, you don't need an excuse, but maybe your man needs an excuse because maybe he doesn't like doing these things normally. But it can be really powerful. Like I've worked with a lot of couples around this, and sometimes couples come to me and they're fighting and they need to really, learn how to communicate and connect emotionally before they can create a vision. But sometimes couples come to me and they're ready to create a vision. And like the most powerful example that I have is where one couple, Joe and Jessica, they came to me and they were just like at each other's throats. Like they really couldn't even be in the same room together. And it was because he was an entrepreneur and his business really took off. And he told her like, hey, I'm going to be working long hours. And she's like, okay, I can, deal with that and support you. But they didn't create a vision around how that was going to look and feel. So she just felt abandoned. Mm-hmm. And she just, got really angry at him and they started fighting. And she was actually, it came to a head when he found out that she had been flirting with another guy and she wasn't planning on doing anything with him. But he got mad at her and she got mad at him. And, what we did together was we created a shared vision, and they said that they wanted to deeply listen to each other and they wanted to create more time to have that passion again. And so I taught them skills for how to listen and for how to reignite passion. I taught them everything that I'll share in this video. And it was hard, because he was still working long hours. And there were times when he came home late and she was mad at him. But then instead of fighting, because I taught them these skills of listening, he was able to listen to her. And they hung their vision on their wall. And so he had the vision in mind and he was like, oh, the vision is for us to listen to each other and connect. So he had that in his mind. And instead of fighting, he was like, oh, okay, I see that you're mad. I see that you're mad that I came home late. Tell me more. Tell me why you're mad. And then basically she just kind of like, was only mad for a few minutes because he was really listening. And then she got sad and he held space for her sadness. And then it turned into turn on. And then they got to revel in their newfound intimacy. So
that is so great. I love personal stories from clients. And I think it's something that a lot of people don't do. They just think the love is just a feeling and they're, and then a couple years down the line, they run into problems because they don't have that shared vision. So that was really important. Let's talk about the second secret. This is actually, I think this is one of the most important ones too. I'm so happy to be talking about this one.
Yes, exactly. The second secret is bidding. And I don't mean bidding on eBay, although that's one of my hobbies. No, but what I mean is responsiveness. And John Gottman's research went a lot into this. He actually wrote a whole book about it. I think it was called The Science of Trust. And that could be a misnomer, but it had trust in the name, because actually what builds trust and what builds connectedness is not necessarily just these big things that we keep agreements with each other. It's these tiny little moments throughout the day. And he calls these bids. We're all making bids for connection. And it's the missed bids that actually cause the lack of trust and the lack of intimacy and the lack of passion, because our attachment system, the part of our brain that's kind of always monitoring how close we are and how much the other person cares about us, it kind of goes on red alert and we get triggered, and then we pick fights about little things, and then you're passionate in the wrong way and not in the right way. Mm-hmm. And so what a bid is it's like it can be any little thing. It can be a word that you say, it could be a smile that you make. It could be like a facial expression. It could be a gesture. It could be as simple as saying, "It's a nice day out." And what happens is that a lot of times we don't notice that it's important to respond to the other person because we're all so busy, mm-hmm. Especially if it's something that we're not interested in. So like, for example, if your guy's watching TV, let's say he's watching I know about this, so I know to be interested, but I didn't used to be interested in the things I wasn't. Like recently my partner told me about, like, let's say the new Tesla pickup truck. It was all over the news a while ago. And he was telling me all about it. And like, if I didn't know about bidding, I would have been like, I don't really care about that. Yeah. I mean, I think it's cool. Don't get me wrong. But I don't care about cars, and I do care about electric cars, and I think it's cool, whatever. But like in the past, I might have brushed him off. And the thing about bidding is that there's 3 ways that you can respond when your partner makes a bid like that. There's a turn towards, there's a turn away from, and then there's turn against. And that's really important. So I'll use that example. Like, we're like, oh, look at this, wow, like, look at the new Tesla pickup truck and look at this video about the glass being shattered and whatever. I could have said, I could have ignored him. And that's turning away. And that's actually the most destructive, because the research has shown that turning away from bidding the majority of the time is what leads to that loss of connection and passion and intimacy. It's actually these little moments. Or I could have turned against and said, I don't really care about that. That's not important to me, right? That would be turning against him. And then there's turning towards, which is like, oh, even if I'm not interested about it, like, what makes you so interested in that? Like, what do you find interesting in it? And then I could have been curious, and I could have just said, or I could have just said, oh, that's really cool. And it's just those little moments that then make him feel connected. And I don't want you to think that turning towards has to be being curious, because we don't always have time to be curious. But even if I'm just like, that's really cool, I don't have time for that now, but you can tell me later. That's a turn towards bid. And what happens is that when we turn towards our partner, then he feels like we're on his team. Then his attachment system doesn't get activated, and then he feels close to you, and like he, wants to create things with you and be passionate with you. And because a lot of times we think, oh, men don't need to feel emotionally connected to be turned on. And actually, most men in committed relationships do need to feel emotionally connected in their own way to be turned on. They don't necessarily need you to listen to their feelings, although sometimes they do. But a lot of times they just need you to have turned towards bids to the things that they are wanting attention for.
That is so great. I love that. I think we should probably do a whole other video just on that. So for everyone watching, let us know what you think down below. Would you like more videos on that? Because I can see how that would go both ways. And then what happens if we make a bid and he, doesn't catch on?
Yeah.
What happens all the time, right? He,
all the time
turns away, and then we feel slighted. So that is so, so important. I'm so glad you brought that up. Are you ready to move on to the third secret?
Yeah, I mean, I have the statistics about bidding if you want, or maybe we should just save that, but I think that it's actually really revealing that, because it's not like you have to respond to your partner's bids all the time, just the majority of the time. And, we miss each other's bids all the time, and it's fine. But the statistics are that husbands headed for divorce disregarded their wives' bids for attention 82% of the time, and that husbands in good relationships disregarded their wives' bids 19% of the time.
Oh my gosh, that's a huge difference. Wow.
Yeah. And of course, there's other factors involved. It's like the chicken and the egg thing, but this is an important one. And that wives headed for divorce disregarded their husbands' bids 50% of the time, and wives in good relationships disregarded their bids 14% of the time. And so it goes both ways. It's both men and women, although it's interesting that the men are a little bit more dismissive statistically when the relationship is bad. But that's also, it's like a chicken or egg thing, but it's like, if you notice that he's disregarding your bids for attention, how are you disregarding his? So it's important to just notice, how is he bidding for attention? Is he wanting you to pay attention to something that might not be that important to you? And you don't have to be that interested in it, but at least say, oh, that's really great, or like, what do you think, what do you like about it? And to be willing to give him attention for the things he wants attention for. And then he'll be more likely to give you attention for the things you want attention for.
Absolutely. Okay, that was great. If you guys have questions about this or any of these other secrets, let us know. We'd be happy to either answer them right here on this video, or make a whole new video on some of these. So let's jump into that third secret.
Yeah, the third secret, which I think a lot of people associate with how to keep how to reignite the passion or the intimacy, is just tips around how to have more quality time. Because what happens is, we all know, if we've lived with someone, like, a lot of times what that looks like is you're both on your laptops together, and you might be in the same room, but you're not making real quality time, unless you're like internet gaming together, but I highly doubt that's what's happening. And so I think what happens is that we just get into these ruts, these habits, and we start to take each other for granted. And that is when our attachment system gets activated. Like, we don't feel prioritized, we don't feel important. And then we pick fights about little things because that's what happens. And then we don't feel connected. And so it's important to be intentional about the ways that you create that quality time. And so I have a ton of tips around that have worked for me and my clients. The first thing that I love, and I know this isn't like something that most people come up with a first tip, but what I do and what I recommend all the couples I work with do is that you take, like how a lot of times when you talk to your partner on a daily basis, it's like, who's going to get the groceries this week and who's going to pick the kids up from soccer practice. And, it becomes like a business relationship instead of a romantic relationship. So what I recommend is that couples take all of those logistical things and they make a meeting once a week. And you work out all those logistical things during that meeting once a week. So then on a daily basis, your relationship could be more romantic, and to be intentional about sharing things like, oh, this is the dream I had last night, or, oh my God, let's look at the stars and the moon together for a few minutes, or let me tell you about a joke I heard today. Or, like, can I share the experience that I had jogging in the park? So a lot of times we don't make time to share that because we're working out all the logistical stuff. So like what my partner and I do is we make a weekly meeting, and we actually call it the secretary meeting, just to make it fun. And like sometimes we do role play that I'm a secretary, but in real life, we both put agenda items in there, and we're both the secretary, of course. But we like to make it fun and playful because like we're talking about serious topics like budgeting and making financial decisions, and like, when are we going to do our taxes? But it's not just finances. It's like, when are we going to have the super come look at the broken radiator and all of that stuff. But like, if we're talking about that every day, then you lose the passion, because what made you fall in love is that you're talking about these fun, meaningful moments. And so I think it's important that you make most of your days about the fun, meaningful moments. And obviously if something is time sensitive, you can bring it up, but if it can wait until that appointment once a week, then you put it there. So that's my first tip. And then the second one is, I mean, I know you've probably heard this from other coaches, but I really, really think it's important to have a date night. I think the couples that don't do this say that their relationship feels mundane. And I think it's important to always be having fun and adventure and trying new things. And that could even be, I understand if you have kids, it can be hard to like find a fun adventure to go on. But, if you can try out a new restaurant, for example, and hire a babysitter, and during that time, say, we're only going to talk about like, what were the magical moments about my week, or, what was the happiest part of my day? And, or what am I challenged with that I can receive your support on, or something like that, that brings you closer. I think it's super important to just have one night a week where you're just connecting the two of you. And then I think it's also important to have some kind of yearly vacation without the kids. And if you can only afford to have it be a weekend because you go away for a week with the kids, then that's fine, but hire a babysitter for the weekend, or do a parent exchange with other parents and go away for a weekend and like have this romantic getaway together. I mean, if you do that, it just like reinvigorates that love that you had in the beginning. And then I think it's also important to really keep on surprising each other, because that's what causes us to fall in love, is that it's new. And so I think it's important to keep on thinking of ways you could surprise each other, even if it's small. Like, even if like once in a while I'll get my partner a card for no reason, or like a little love note, that I leave somewhere for him to read, or, like that's why we like men to buy us flowers, is because it's a surprise. Like if he buys us flowers every Friday, then it's not as special, So we can think about like, what are the little things we can do to keep surprising him. And I think it's also really important to be playful. I think we kind of lose sense of that when we're just playing with the kids, in a long-term relationship, that there's times where like sometimes, we'll play like a silly card game, like Cards Against Humanity, and laugh together. Or we'll like put on music and dance together and be all silly, or we'll like crawl on the floor and act like animals together or whatever. Like, I think it's really important to just let yourself be silly and be playful, because life is just too serious. And that's like, I think it's just important to, when you have quality time, make it intentional and intend to think. I mean, I know like you can't intentionally have a surprise, but it's up to you to think about what are the ways that I can be intentional about surprising him, and what are the ways that I can be intentional about being playful, and carving out that date night every week where you're not doing work and you're just spending that quality time with each other. I just think it's so important. Like, otherwise you're just a business partnership and not a romantic partnership.
Yeah, I think some of those things is, well, actually all the things you just shared is kind of like probably what caused the two of you to fall in love in the first place, right? For everybody watching. So, and I think dopamine gets released when you're doing things with, so it's almost like kind of recreating those neurotransmitters like norepinephrine and serotonin and dopamine that are kind of associated with the newness of the situation, kind of like new experiences into your relationship can kind of like reignite the passion. I could really see how that would happen. So the fourth secret is all about the sexual chemistry, reigniting the passion in that area. We definitely received some questions about that. So do you want to move on to that one?
Sure. And feel free to ask specific questions, or in the comments, you can ask specific questions, because I have general principles to share, because I know we could do a whole video just about that, and we could. So there's basically 3 principles that I have to share about how to keep the sexual passion going. And so the first one, which is what I know that you talk about in a lot of your videos, is being in your feminine energy if you're a woman. Because if you're in your masculine energy, the guy won't be attracted, or he won't, like, because, it'll just kind of turn him off. And because did the sound cut off for a sec?
Oh yeah, it did, but I think it's back on.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So he wants to feel like he's the man, and like he wants to be the one leading the dynamic. And so being in your feminine energy, I know you talk a lot about that in your other videos, but how it specifically applies to sex is that the masculine partner is the leader, but the feminine partner invites, and seduces. And so the way that, because when I coach men, a lot of them say they want their female partner to initiate sex more. And how to initiate in a feminine way is to be invitational, and, to be playful, and to dress sexy, and to, just start touching him, and to, men don't usually need a lot of, excuse to, like, once they see that you're turned on, but it's important that you're invitational and that you're like in your pleasure and you're inviting him in. And even if you're not turned on yet, but you want to be, like, then you can say like, hey, I love your body, and start touching him. And I would really like it for you to start touching me too, because he should, not he should, but like if you're in a long-term relationship, hopefully you've told him what it is that turns you on, and you can just, remind him of those things if that's what you want, but you can still invite him into it. And I mean, that's the second tip, is that a lot of times if we are in a relationship with someone for a while and the sex has just happened in the beginning, we haven't really told each other what turns us on. I think it's important to just have that conversation, because you might have fantasies that you haven't told him about. Or you might have like a role play that you want to do that you feel embarrassed to talk about, or you might even have a fetish that turns you on that he doesn't know about. And the thing with men is that usually, if it's consensual and he doesn't feel grossed out by it, usually men are pretty open-minded sexually. And as long as you're not saying, oh, I want to do this with the whole world, as long as you're saying, I want to do this with you, usually men are open to trying new things. And a lot of times we hold back because we think it's weird, or like he won't be open to it. But you know, I know that like ever since 50 Shades of Grey, I think it's been more normalized that people can have fantasies, but a lot of times people still don't talk about them. So I think that when you're already feeling connected and you're on that date night, like you can say, hey, I have a fantasy. Is it okay if I tell you about it? And I mean, I've role played all kinds of fantasies. Like I've pretended that like, you know, we go to a bar and we're just meeting each other for the first time again. You know, there's like, you can role play that you're different people. Like, it's really fun. Or you can bring games or toys into it. Like it's really fun when you're in a long-term relationship to have that acceptance of each other for new things and to bring the newness back into it. So, I mean, the question to ask yourself is like, what does turn you on that you haven't talked about yet? And how could you create that safe environment to talk about it? Or like if it's not a fantasy, maybe there's some kind of foreplay that he could do that would really get you in the mood. And usually men love hearing about that. Like, you know, even if he thinks it's more work, once he sees that it really turns you on. You know, like I basically like taught my partner how to touch me in new ways that, you know, he hadn't learned with his previous lovers. And once he learned it, I got more turned on. So like, why wouldn't you want to learn that, you know? But a lot of times we just don't know how to speak it because men don't necessarily like to hear that they're doing it wrong. So I really, when I work with women, I teach them about using the appreciation sandwich when they ask for something sexually. You might have your own version about that, but it's like saying you start out with something you really like, oh, I love how you're touching me, or I just love how the way you turn me on. Like you always start with saying something positive, and then instead of saying what you don't like, say what you want. You know, could you go a little slower? Or is it okay if I show you something that I like that might be unique to me? So maybe you don't know it, you know? And then he'll probably say, sure. And then you show him. And then once he's doing it, then you obviously make noises of happiness. And, you know, so you're kind of sandwiching the request between two positive things. And then men usually really like hearing it. Or if he's doing it and he's not making you feel good, then you keep using the appreciation sandwich. I mean, unless it hurts, of course, then you say, ouch, stop. But, you know, like if, you know, he's not using enough pressure or he's going too fast or something, you can be like, oh, I love your touch. And could you slow down? Or could you go a little lighter? Oh, thank you. That feels better. You know, so if you tell him in that framework, then usually they love getting feedback and they want to make us happy. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing I think is the most important. So that's why I saved it for last. The third thing is a dynamic that I think relationship therapist Esther Perel talks about the most, which is that in order to create desire, you can't desire something that you already have. Mm-hmm. You know, like I don't desire to be talking to you right now, Helena, because I'm already talking to you. I like talking to you, but I can't desire it, right? And like sexual desire is actually created by separateness, not togetherness. And so what happens when we live together is like usually we feel not usually, but a lot of times when the sexual passion isn't there is because you feel too close and you don't have enough separate life outside of the relationship. And Esther Perel wrote a whole book about that called Mating in Captivity. And it's about like, if you're too close, then there's no desire. And so what you need to do is to actually create healthy separateness. Not that you're hiding things from him, you know, but like I have a separate life and he has a separate life. And obviously we know about it. We're not like leading double lives. Like you want to keep things from him that if he knew about, he would be okay with. Not keep things from him that if he knew about, he wouldn't be okay with. You know, so for example, like I'll go out with my girlfriends and like we'll, you know, go clothes shopping together. And he does not want to hear about all the things I saw. He just doesn't. And if I told him that, it would kill the passion because he's feeling annoyed. Like I'm talking too much about things he doesn't care about. Which is different than bidding. Bidding is like little things. But like if he's going on and on and on for hours about the car, I would probably say, I love your excitement about this. And it's, you know, more interesting to you than it is to me, but I thank you for sharing, you know, and he'd say the same thing about the clothes. But, you know, like I take dance classes, I have hobbies, I do yoga, I play the ukulele. Like he doesn't want to hear about what songs I'm learning on the ukulele or whatever. Like he just wants to hear me play. And so the thing is to have a separate life with separate friends and not go to him with all your problems, share with your girlfriends, not use him as your sole emotional support because he'll feel burdened. Like maintain enough of a healthy separateness. And so that, you know, because that's what you had when you were dating. And so we're talking about you need to keep doing the same things that you did when you were dating. Now that you're in a relationship, I think that also applies to having a healthy separate life, so that then you have a little mystery and he starts to get curious about you, or you know, change your hairstyle or whatever. And he's like, oh, she's keeping on changing. She has mystery. And that can also, if that's your issue, is that you're too close, then that's the solution.
Yeah. Oh, I have so much to say on all of that. I know you have to go in a few minutes and we want to get to number 5, which we think is the most important one, or one of the most important things you can do to reignite that passion. But I love everything you shared there. Gosh, we could really do a whole video just on that separateness, how you don't want to go for like this, right? Like
Yeah.
there's always this, and maybe just go for more, it's a dynamic, right? Not this static thing, because like you said, how can you have desire when it's there, when you have it?
Right.
It's like when you want something and then you get it, your desire for it, that's ability to inspire you to action and call that life force through you is like immediately diminished. So there's so much to be said on that. I love everything.
I know. I mean, and that, like Esther Perel did write a whole book on that. So it's like, it's very rich topic, and not one that has an easy solution. I mean, I think that, you know, it's about really taking a look at the ways that your relationship is mundane and being intentional about creating more of a passion in your own life.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so let's move into number 5. This one is so crucial. I would love to hear everything you have to say on it.
I know. I mean, there's so much to say on this, but number 5 is accepting differences, and that's so much easier than done, right? Because opposites attract. And so in the beginning, you probably like the ways that he's different from you, like if he's an extrovert and you're an introvert, or let's say he's spontaneous and you're more planned out. In the beginning, that's attractive, right? Because you unconsciously, it's attractive because you want to learn more how to be that yourself and feel more balanced. That's the growth opportunity. But what happens is then when we get into a relationship with that person, it starts to annoy the hell out of us, right? That they're so different, because we want them to be more like us. And when your partner feels judged, then that's going to kill the passion, right? Because that's a passion killer more than anything else, when you feel like someone's judging you. And he can tell, even if you're not saying it out loud. And so the question that I always have people ask themselves is, if I'm judging something about somebody else, what's the growth opportunity for me? You know, obviously there could be something that does need to change, and then it's a question of supporting him in something he's already changing. But more often than not, it's like, let's say he's a spender and you're a saver, and in the beginning you enjoyed the ways that he, you know, took you out on lavish trips, but now that you're living together, you know, you don't have the security that you want. I worked with one couple like that, where he was a spender and she was a saver. And the cure for that is really getting underneath, like the cure for everything. Like, what does spending provide for him, and why is that important to him, and what's his vision with that, right? And what does saving provide for you, and like what is underneath it, and what's your ultimate vision with that? And when I helped that couple that I worked with create that together, then they were able to create a budget together, like once he really saw what security provided for her and wanted to make her feel safe, that allowed enough of room for spontaneous spending in the budget, right? So that there are win-win solutions that you can come up with if you go deep enough. But if you're just looking at this on your own, of course, you can create that win-win solution together. There's also this concept of projection, meaning like if I'm judging him for his spontaneous spending, let's say, that could be a growth opportunity for me. Like, how could I'm probably judging that part of myself that's spontaneous. And there's a growth opportunity for me to be more balanced and being more spontaneous. And how could I do that in a healthy way? Because the more that I grow myself in that healthy way, the more it can inspire him then, because he's going to stop seeing me judging him. Then he's going to be more inspired to grow, to be more like me, and then we'll both be balanced. So I know that it's easier said than done, but this is, I think, the dynamic that happens in all relationships is when you live with someone, you start to judge them for the ways that they're not living both the way that they want to live and you want to live. Mm-hmm. And the real growth, when you're going to talk about it, is to get yourself to the point where you're not judging that first, because nobody wants to change because someone's judging them. People only want to change because you're authentically curious about what's best for them, you know?
True, yeah.
And in order to get yourself to that space, you have to be willing to grow yourself. So, I mean, I know that there's not an easy fix for that, but the main tip I have for that is just to look at, like, if I'm judging something in them, like, we're all mirrors for each other, right? So what's that? What am I seeing in the mirror? Like, what am I judging about them that I'm also judging about me? And then how can I grow that part of me so it's more balanced? And then when I do that, I'm probably going to be in a better space to talk to him about it.
So true. That is so important. Again, we could probably do another video just on that, and I can really see how that would reignite the passion, because how can you feel passion for someone if you're constantly feeling like they're judging you or looking down on you or questioning your choices or second guessing everything you're doing? So I can see how that would really help make a man fall in love all over again, and you too, right? So this was great. Do you want to recap I know you have to go in like a minute, but do you want to recap these 5 and talk about your free gifts?
Yeah, that's okay. I could talk about this stuff for hours, especially with you, because I just love our back and forth. And I know I've been doing most of the talking, but I can see how much you're loving it and how much you could add your own wisdom. But yeah, so the first tip that I've shared is that shared vision and shared values. And I think just any time of year is great to do that. But you know, around any holiday is great. Like, what do we want to create between now and the next holiday? It's just a wonderful way to be on the same team together. And choosing those shared values that you're then upholding together, I think really brings the relationship deeper. And the second is to really be intentional about your quality time. I listed a lot of tips for how to do that, but just if you're not intentional about how you spend your quality time, then you'll probably wind up getting in a rut. And so, you know, rewind the video back to that if you want all the tips that I gave for how to do that. Or sorry, that was the third. The second was bidding. Bidding or responsiveness. And that's just around noticing, like, what are those little ways that they're just expressing, that he's expressing himself, that I can respond to? And what would it look like to turn towards that response rather than turn against or turn away? Because if you turn towards the majority of the time, which is, oh, thanks for sharing that. Or like, if he says it's a nice day out, like, yeah, it is, you know, like just responding in a turn towards way is what builds that sense of connection and trust, and passion, really, because then you're connected on a very deep subconscious level. And then it is in keeping sexual passion alive, which I shared 3 tips for how to do that, and accepting differences and using them to grow, because I think that relationships are one of the biggest growth opportunities that we have available. Because if somebody knows us really deeply, then they also know, like, they see all the ways that we're beautiful and wonderful and magnificent. And then they also see all the ways that we're falling short of our potential. And we start to judge each other instead of being able to inspire each other. And inspiring each other is what creates that passion.
Yes, love it. Thank you so much for recapping those. I know we're trying to squeeze all of these into a shorter amount of time that we had available. I'm so glad we had a chance to do this. Do you want to talk a little bit about your free gifts or your free 90-minute breakthrough session? I know that you have an application on your website. I think you're at a little bit of a waiting list now, but for anyone looking for coaching, Valerie is such an amazing coach. I refer clients to her like, 5-10 times a week because she's trained in everything, and she's just so smart and knowledgeable and such a good coach. Really, about your situation. But yeah, what free gift do you have for everybody today?
Thank you, Helena. I always appreciate that. And yeah, so I do offer a free 90-minute breakthrough session, and that's for people that are looking to hire somebody for ongoing coaching, and they want to talk to me to see if I'm the right fit. And we go through a process where I listen to your story and I co-create a plan with you, and you leave feeling really inspired. And so you're welcome to apply for that. And I know you have the link below. And then I have 3 free gifts below that I know you have the links for. And I have one for couples called 3 Steps to Stop Fighting and Start Connecting. And then I have one for single women called the Magnetic Dating Formula. And then I have one for women in a relationship about how to share your feelings in a way that inspires him rather than turns him away. And that is called Manifest Lasting Love. And I know you like to put the links below the videos. And so I'm really happy to be able to offer all of this information, because I just really want everybody to be in touch with the love for themselves and the love for their partners, and create a lifetime of passion and intimacy together, and provide everyone with the tools that they need to do that.
Yeah, so everything's in the description right below this video. Also, all the other videos, I think we've done like close to 10 or 12 or something, some crazy amount like that, videos that we've done on all these different kinds of topics. So no matter where you're at in your love life, we have a video that would be helpful. Every time I bring Valerie on, I get more requests to bring her back on. So any other videos you'd like from us, we love doing this for you guys. Have a great rest of the day. And Valerie, thank you so much again. I will talk to you soon.
Great.